It's quite a hot day today, isn't it? Scorching sun out there. It's very hot. Very thirsty. Don't worry, I don't mean it just in the literal sense. Of course. We've come past many hot days like this. In this existential journey of samsara. Hey, all our days have been hot days. Arid, parched existence, that is what we've had. We've been burnt so many times in samsara. Not just burnt our fingers, but burnt head to toe. Just ever so fortunately, we've come across the Dhamma, this invigorating Dhamma, which is able to pacify us, cool us, settle us down, find a better way of life, as well as a better purpose of our existence in samsara. I think it's important to remind ourselves of that from time to time, lest we forget. I often do ask myself, what are some of the main reasons that people find it so difficult to understand the Dhamma? Why do people struggle so much? When monks all over the world and lay people who have understood the teaching, the doctrine, deliver many hours and days worth of, if not weeks and months and years worth of sermons, and with each and every one trying their best to help other people understand, why is it that people struggle so much? Why is it that it just doesn't click for some people? There are lots of factors that have an effect on this. And I often do ponder myself what might be some of these reasons, just so I can remind you to introspect, check within yourselves, do you have these reasons? Do you have these causes which prevent you from understanding the Dhamma? And if you do, what do you have to do? Clean the closet, right? Just clean it up. Get rid of the old stuff, the bad stuff, the useless stuff. Just make room. That's all you need to do. Just make room. Because what you get can only be put into your closet if you have room in it. You can only stuff so much in it. And if it's filled up with all sorts of rubbish and nonsense and useless stuff that is of no use to anybody, then you're just clogging it up with really rubbish. So we need to look within ourselves, look at our minds, look at what sort of mindset we have, and ask ourselves, why is it that we listen to so many sermons? I mean, in Sri Lanka, how many sermons get preached on a daily basis? And if you consider throughout the world, so many monks throughout the world, they preach the Dhamma. A lot of them talking about Anicca Dukkha Anatta nowadays. A lot of them focused on Nibbana. So what is the barrier? And I think one of the main reasons really is ego. Conceit. Ego is a really big barrier for a lot of people. And this is a huge barrier that people really struggle with. So it's important that we look within ourselves and ask ourselves, do we suffer from this condition of ego? Now, I accept that only an arahant has rid himself or herself of ego once and for all. And for all the rest of us, ego is still there somewhere within us. Conceit is always there within our minds. But at least, it's like diabetes. As far as I know, you can't treat it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can't treat it, you just have to live with it. There are drugs that help you live with it. Perhaps medicine has advanced nowadays, but when I was a lay person and Last time I heard someone was diagnosed with diabetes, you couldn't treat the disease, you just have to learn to live with it. And that helps. These drugs you take, they help control the sugar levels within your body, insulin and things like that. And you just have to live with it. So this mana or ego or conceit is a condition that you have to learn to control. Because he who does not have ego no longer needs the Dhamma. One who needs the Dhamma is one who still has ego. But for as long as you have ego, you're struggling to take the Dhamma. It's a catch-22. Once you've taken the Dhamma, once you've accepted it, once it's become part of you really, then you no longer have ego. But ego is the very barrier which stops you from taking in the Dhamma. So what you need to treat the disease itself is stopping you from taking it. Are you following me? There's a treatment for the disease, but the disease itself is stopping you from taking the treatment. That's a really pitiful situation to be in. It's quite pathetic. So if we're clever enough, if we're wise enough, we need to accept that ego is something that's going to be with us until the day that we have cleansed our mind of all defilements, including ego itself. Ruparaga, mana, uddacha, avijja. So mana, that's one of the last of the sanyojana, the 10 fetters to be eradicated. It's one of the last ones to go away. The penultimate one, in fact. Just the one before last. So all this disappears the moment you become an arahant. So you don't need this instruction after you become an arahant. So therefore then we need to learn to live with it, not let it go out of control. Because when it does that, then you are in real trouble. Here are some of the things that ego will do to you. So you can at least be aware and be mindful and try and control it. Oh, before that, let me ask you, put your hand up if you don't have ego. Okay, thankfully, I'm speaking to the right audience. Just in case, you should never second guess. Never make assumptions. I learned in my life. So thankfully, we are speaking to the right audience. When I ask, put your hand up if you have ego, doesn't ego really get in the way and say, hey, don't even accept that you have this disease? This is how subtle ego is. Let me show you a time in your study of the Dhamma where you might fall into a huge trap. This is a colossal trap if you fall into which your progress in the Dhamma is absolutely non-existent after that. And that is not accepting that you have not understood. Not accepting that you don't know. You know you don't know, but you don't like to accept it. You know that you haven't understood it, but in public particularly, you don't like to accept that. Even in front of your teacher, you don't like to accept that. So for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say I talk to you about the Dhamma. I try and explain a key point that you need to understand. And then I say, put your hands up if you didn't understand that. Inside your mind, you're going to hesitate. You're in the presence of others. And when you're in the presence of others, you know you're being judged. How do you know you're being judged? It takes one to? It takes one to what? It takes one to know one. You know you're being judged because you are judgmental. Because you judge others, you know, sure as hell, others are going to be judgmental of you. So when someone asks, put your hand up if you didn't understand that. Now what you're going to do? The first thing you're going to do is not put your hand up. You're going to scan the room. Who else might have their hands up? The first one to put their hand up is really quite brave. Because he's making a fool out of himself. This is how society have taught us. Because you see, to excel in society, you have to be the one who knows it all. Is that not right? You have to be the one who knows it all. Because knowledge is what is respected in society. If you know a lot, you get respected a lot. If you have a lot of titles after your name, you're a big shot, aren't you? If you have a lot of letters after your name, BA London, MSc, Reading, PhD Philadelphia, I don't know, I'm just making this up. Now that earns a lot of respect. Isn't that why you put all these titles after your name? Knowledge. What else are you expressing with these titles? I have a lot of knowledge. I know a lot of stuff. If you want to know something, who should you ask? Who should you ask? Who? Of course, me. Who else? If you want to know something about anything, just ask me. If you don't know something, just ask me. I know it. Don't you always have an opinion about everything? Everything. Is it going to rain today? You have an opinion, don't you? Who's going to win the next election? Of course you have an opinion. Why? You know the answer. I don't know why they bother with elections. They should just come and ask you. Who's going to win the next World Cup? Come on. You know the answer. It's what you think. Is who you think is going to win, right? So we all have an opinion. And we're also eager to express our opinions. You know, when someone asks you a question, or someone tries to explain something to you, something you already know, do you not feel very unsettled inside? When you're listening to something that someone is explaining to you, and you already know about it, you feel so unsettled. You feel almost like, hey, stop, I know this. Are you disrespecting my knowledge? I don't know if you feel this now, but at least when you first started this journey, there you will have experienced this. Let's say you're a doctor, for instance, okay? You're a doctor. And you go into a social gathering, and let's say you've got a rash on your foot. Now you're a doctor. So if you're a doctor, you what? You know. You got a rash on your foot, and you go into a place where there are lots of people, let's say relations or neighbors or whoever, and they just incidentally see your foot and they see a rash. Now they start to give you advice. Don't people just love to give advice? It's a very favorite pastime of a lot of people, giving advice, not to oneself, to others. This is all because of ego. So by the way, this is not to ridicule society. It's just to accept that you are also a member of society. MOS, one of your titles. Not member of the Royal Society, member of society. So as a member of society, you took membership of that because you like what society has to offer. This is why you all took membership of that society. Lifelong members. So when you're in society and people see, simple example, right? Someone sees a rash on your foot and they'll start to offer advice. Hey, that rash on your foot. You know, I know a certain drug that can help you. You should try this home medicine. And they start going on. How do you feel inside? You're a doctor. Do you not feel like saying, hey, yeah, okay, I'm a doctor. You don't have to offer me advice. I'm a doctor because I know. So you can stop there, right there. Or you're a teacher. They're the most dangerous. You're a teacher. So of course you know it all. I don't know if any of you are teachers, by the way. I'm just saying this is generally how our minds work. And this is so true of all of us. Except for an Arahant. This is true for all of us. Because remember, it's only when you become an arahant, this sanyojana, this fetter, that is mana, goes away. Until that time, you just want to show that I'm here. Look, see, I'm here, see, me. Hello, I'm here. You want everybody to notice that you're present in the room, in the gathering. So you have to say something.